Morning, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Big Monday. Hope your week has gotten off to a good start. If this isn't your first time here, you know me. My name is Corey Lagrange, and we are here for Weekly Emsights. Today, my guest is Director of HR here at Emfluence, LaToya Rozof. LaToya, when you get that camera rolling, why don't you pop in and say hi? Hey, good morning. Think you
Good
might still
morning.
be on. Yeah, there we go. All running. How's it going this morning, LaToya?
Really good, really good. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. So, for everyone out there who might be, one of the people who have attended, quite a few of these weekly insights, we do have to let you guys know that this will be the last edition in the series. It's been really awesome to pull this together to really help our friends in marketing and advertising kind of navigate their way through COVID, and figure out just where they should be going, what they should be doing, the steps that they should be taking. And I'm really proud to see a lot of companies adapting really well to the cliche new normal, kind of how we're doing business today. So we feel like while our work here is not completely done, we're in the process of working on some new content and things that we're going to be sending out to you guys. So while this isn't goodbye, it's see you later. This will be the last edition of Weekly Insights. So keep an eye out. If you haven't subscribed to our email list, we'll drop that in at the end of the video. And you can keep an eye out for new video content we have going, new series, and all of that good stuff. We're working on some great things, so we're excited to continue the conversation with you guys. But for today, we're going to be talking about how where we work impacts marketing strategy. And I'm really excited to have LaToya, you here on this call with us, because not every organization has somebody dedicated to HR and to kind of having their finger on the pulse of the team and making sure that we're being effective, but also being taken care of as human beings. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's not a dynamic that everybody has. So why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself, and we'll kind of jump into some of these topics that we want to discuss.
Yeah, sure. So LaToya Rozof, I'm a Kansas City native, and I have been in HR for the last 14 years. A majority of my HR experience has been in financial institutions and distribution centers. So this is my first time in like a creative setting. It's been pretty awesome.
Awesome. Well, we're happy to have you here. You really make a difference here at Emfluence. So hope we can bring a little bit of that to the people out there watch it today for sure. So first things first, one of the things that I've really struggled with through this whole COVID thing is the fact that what I know is marketing and technology and digital strategy, right? What I don't know is how to navigate how logistics of working with a team remotely. We went from being all in one office space, being KC centered, to no two people being in the same room at all anymore. And we know this is a very collaborative business that we're in. So tell us a little bit about how people were or were not prepared, and just some of the changes that we're initially seeing in how people get their work done as related to COVID and remote work and things like that.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest hiccups that most companies have experienced is technology, right? A lot of companies, they use a lot of older products, even from laptops and even like remote tokens and things like that. So that's probably been one of the biggest barrier for companies to overcome is what technology does our team need and our staff need to work remotely effectively. So that's the first thing. And then just different, and then knowing how to navigate the different communication channels, right? Of course, you have Zoom meetings. Everybody knows about Zoom meetings. And then you have instant message, and then you have email, and it's like trying to figure out really what's the best avenue to connect with the team and with our clients, and or just even with each other. So I think those are kind of the biggest barriers that companies are really trying to navigate through. And even from an onboarding perspective, right? Because a lot of companies had to do hiring freezes because it's like they had in-person, interviews, and then they had to really scramble to go virtual. And it's not really easy just to say, hey, I'm going to talk to you via FaceTime. You got to have the technology for privacy and things like that when it comes to new hires and onboarding. For
sure. And this is, probably opened a lot of people's eyes at the management and administrative levels, right? I can't imagine it was a real easy feat to come up with a 100% remote work policy when we know that, so many businesses didn't have any kind of formalized policy on remote work or working from home and things like that.
Exactly. And it was really drinking from the fire hose perspective. It's like, okay, we jumped into this, and how do we make this work for our company? Every company situation is different, because if you have client-facing departments, their work from home is a little bit different from somebody who's behind the scenes. It can go totally remote. So it's really figuring out what works best for that organization. And then you have the productivity, and then you have the communication, and like all those factors go into creating a really strong policy.
Definitely.
And luckily, we already had a work from home policy. And so ours was just really revising it and fine tuning it for our workspace.
For sure. And, that's a good point. Having an across the board policy that kind of speaks and addresses every different person of every different job function at an organization, that's kind of a dream scenario, right? But it's not really something that you can put into practice, 100% across the board, because like you mentioned, if you're working with account service teams or project managers and things like that, they necessitate established, so to speak, office hours, right? There's got to be some core of time where the client and the rest of the team knows that they'll be able to get in touch with that person, as opposed to somebody who might be a developer or, somebody who works on production side, where they could really work from 8 p.m. until 3 in the morning if they decide to, as long as they're hitting that deadline. It's kind of a little more flexible for them to get that work done. But I can't imagine how tough that dynamic is to set up those kind of parameters for different job types. For, let's say you're in the account management role, and you've got not only the hurdle of navigating, okay, I need to be available for my team during some core hours, but you might have clients on the East Coast and the West Coast. So how do you flex those times? And parents and kids home, that's just such a big, overwhelming thing, right?
Yeah, and that's actually, I was going to say, and then you have the juggle of the home life too. And so you had parents that went right into being teachers, working from home overnight, and just really trying to figure all that out too. And I think we are seeing maybe the change from, I think one thing in the pandemic is the change from the normal 9 to 5, workload. Now it depends on when you can get the work done. A lot of parents, they work at nights after kids go to bed, or catch up on the weekends and things like that. And I think it's, based on deadlines.
Yeah. So how can a company who doesn't have something, really robust set in place, what are some ways that they can get started? Because, we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. We might have a wave 2. We might go back to phase 1. Like, there's a lot of questions out there with the rising case numbers. What are some ways that people can get started on developing these policies and making sure that they work for the whole team if they don't have anything really flexible in place?
Yeah, the first thing I would say, everything obviously is based on business needs, right? So figuring out what does the client or the customer, whoever the product needs, and then really working backwards. And then so you start from there, and then you break it down by department. What department needs to serve the client or the product or the customer at this time? And then how do they cross collaborate with another department, and really start setting up those parameters and I don't want to say boundaries, but work collaboration restrictions. Sure. So if I need something from this department by 5, but everyone stops working at 4, really, having those open communications. Hey team, let's figure out ways to everybody can meet the needs of the customer, because it all is based on the customer in the business, right? Sure. So I would just say start there and work backwards, and then, prioritize by the departments that touch that company, that product or that customer, that from that sure. way.
And, another part of that I've always seen, really, it kind of gets left by the wayside, but it's really important, is establishing, communication protocols. Just because, like you mentioned, there's so many spaces for us to collaborate and communicate nowadays. I mean, just off the top of my head, here at Emfluence, we use Slack, we use email, sometimes we text message, we've got SharePoint, we've got, all these different places where, we send files here, we send messages and do discussions here, we send emails, we do all this and that. If you're not aligned on what each of those avenues is used for and the expectations behind them, that can end up getting really messy too, right? Because
exactly. And I was going to say, yeah, setting those expectations per project. Basically, you treat any project, you manage it through timelines and expectations and communication. So if we're working with a client, we'll make sure we dump all that client's information in this shared folder, right? But if we're talking directly, we might talk via email. But if I need you instantly, we're going to talk via Slack. So yeah, I think you create all those expectations and timelines ahead of. And then I think we're at a place, since we are virtual, where you really over communicate, right? Just to make sure that you don't, miss anything.
Yeah. It can be frustrating not knowing where everyone's priority is too, right? So
yeah, that's why over communicating. Like, did I tell you that? Did I send you that? I'm going to send this again. If I haven't sent this to you, if I sent this already, I'm sorry. I apologize. I want to make sure that you got it.
Yep. I've been saying a lot of okay, so I'm going to say this back to you as I understand it, what you said, and you tell me if I got that right.
Right, exactly.
Awesome. So, not only is it kind of changing how we're working from a tools standpoint and technology standpoint, right? Managers are really having to make a big shift in how they, work directly with their teams. It's certainly nothing like I've seen in the past before. I'm used to working with vendors and the occasional outsourced professional capability with somebody not within the company, but that really changes when your entire team is dispersed, right? How are managers kind of addressing where they could previously drop in at somebody's desk and say, hey, just checking in on you, everything good, you need any help with anything? Or how are they effectively going to be able to make that transition, and what are some things that they can consider in doing that?
Yeah, we've moved into a new space where the manager employee relationship is more built on trust right now, right? Trust and over communication. And it's so, working from home used to be like the code word where people used to say, oh yeah, right, you're working from home. But now, since everybody's working from home, like I said, you have to introduce that trust factor. And I think it goes back to one, as a manager, setting those clear expectations, and even in over communication. So if you have a team, like maybe every morning, like we do, you have some type of huddle to set the priorities for a team, right? And then there's those constant check-ins throughout the day, and it's not micromanaging. Once again, it's going back to making sure like everyone's really clear. But managers need it's kind of rewiring of the brain for managers. Even though I can't see you, I trust and know that you are getting the job done, because now the performance has moved to results based, right? Because everything you do now is based on the output that you're able to produce. So that's kind of like rewiring of the brain for managers as well. But I think as managers, one really setting a clear standard and a tone for the employees, right? So it's like if you have Monday morning, you lay out the projects for the week, and then you do, intermittent check-in throughout and see how those projects are going. And on the other side, I think you kind of set expectations for your team to check in with you. It's not, once again, not micromanaging, but like, hey, this is where I'm at, project's on track, or no, wait, I might need some help with this project because, project is, running them behind, or I might need to delegate or find a new resource or something like that. But yes, one, setting clear expectations, like we mentioned, setting those communication standards, right? By the end of the day, maybe you check in and say, hey, what did you get accomplished today? Today. So really setting those just more and more communications. And it might be sometimes more, maybe a weekly one-on-one, depending on the team and the project and the employees. Managers know their employees. They know the ones that maybe some need more communication. But it's, like I said, we're moving from really manager-employee, like trust. This is a trust relationship. I trust that you're an adult and you're getting your work done.
Yeah, for sure. That's another thing is, that kind of dynamic really ports over to the agency client or internal marketing team to executive team relationship as well, right? Because now we've gone from, where we used to be able to sit around in a room and kind of, I always joke that anytime you search for stock photography, if any of you guys are designers out there, you'll recognize this. Anytime you search for analytics, marketing strategy, business strategy, anytime you're looking for images related to any of those kinds of things, what you immediately get is a room full of 8 people hovered around a whiteboard with some like superimposed technology graphics on top of it. And it's like, that's the thing that we automatically thought of whenever it came to developing strategy and pulling together deliverables and things like that. It was that in-place collaboration where not only were we, coming up with ideas in that brainstorm, but we could be a little more loose at the front end of a project because we knew we could hash out all of these details and all the guardrails whenever we got into this team environment, right? But working remotely like this isn't as conducive to this collaborative, big group strategy approach that we know that it takes when you're working with a multidisciplinary team. So the same way that managers have to be clear of the expectations and very clear in the ask that they have of their teams, I think now it's becoming more and more important to establish some of these baseline, I call them the non-negotiables of a project or of a campaign at the front end, and being exceedingly clear that we're all on that same page whenever we start, because now work is becoming more disparate, right? If we're talking about a marketing strategy like, we're talking about today, there's a lot of collaboration that needs to go into that. Internally alone, we've got our accounts team who knows the client and their business need. We've got myself and the rest of the directors who know the subject matter and know our teams and who to pull in for specific projects based on their specific areas of expertise. Then we kind of pull all that together and make a cohesive message. But where we could previously get all these people in one room together and hash it out, there's a lot less of that, because like you said, now, people's meetings and schedule, their meeting lists and their schedules, they are chock blocked now in a way that they never were whenever we were all in one physical location, because you've got to grab and guard that time. So the odds that we're all going to be working on this same project at the same time are pretty slim. So coming up with these specific asks and setting up, your KPIs for the campaign, the thing you're trying to achieve, who's in on the team, what's their responsibility, who's going to pull it all together, who's going to execute, making sure that we build all that on the front end is it's very analogous to the manager side of things, where we've got to do those same things in setting expectations, because that's the only way that we can get a quality product out there, right?
Totally agree. And I think even a few of our departments, they even invested in some collaborative software where they can, be able to, come together on projects, outside the designated meeting times and things like that. And I think another department was a really good idea. They created actually collaborative space on the calendar where they do come together, again, outside of a team meeting, to make sure everyone's on the same page about the project and make sure everyone's ideas are being input. So
I love that. And it's in my past agency experience, we've always come up with the best ideas, the best performance, the best creative, the best results whenever we have people who are collaborating, even where it's not in their departmental wheelhouse. Some of the best creative ideas that I've seen in the past come from the account team, or come from somebody who's not even in on the project. They'll say, hey, I saw this thing, or I heard this thing. Wouldn't it be really cool if you did X, Y, and Z? And you get a completely different perspective that you wouldn't have gotten, if this person who's technically uninvolved in the project hadn't come across this work, or hadn't seen, some proofs floating around the office or something like that, So I think guarding that multidisciplinary creative time ahead of when we're putting our heads down and working on the production work, I think that's so important, and something that's really vital to keep in place is carving out and guarding that time for creative collaboration, with some guardrails, like I said, but free of the constraint that, this might not be my place to speak up about this subject. Obviously I don't want to patronize the designers and say, why do we choose red instead of blue? Like, that's not what I mean. But,
right.
Collaborating in that sense, because we all bring a lot of different life experience and things to the table that can change the filter of how we look at some of these projects.
That's true. And sometimes when you are close to something, you might miss the biggest factor that could be in change, and you have somebody else come in and say, like you just said, like, hey, did you ever think about this? And you're like, no, because I just been only working on it every day. So
Yep, we get that tunnel vision for projects sometimes, right?
Yes.
So, we're talking a lot about work and productivity, and up until COVID, and even past where we are with that, being active online and in our space, we get inundated with a lot of what people call hustle culture. Like there's this pressure to find pride in working an 18-hour day, and I only sleep 3 hours. I only do this. Even whenever I'm taking a shower, I'm learning and listening to a podcast and X, Y, and Z. Like the professional world has placed a lot of importance on always being busy, and people get burned out, right?
Exactly.
You throw a global pandemic and becoming a homeschool teacher on top of that, and people, we're seeing, anxiety and depression going through the roof in a lot of places. People just not have, even though we're home, we have some of the lowest work-life balance that we've ever had, because of just the displacement and the expectations that are placed on us and that we place on ourselves. So, we know that mental health is such an important part of, not only meeting your basic human needs, but people perform better whenever they are more satisfied and comfortable with their life, right? So what are some ways that we can focus on wellness and maintaining that balance, but still being effective, of course?
Yeah, I mean, and I just read an article the other day that said America is one of the only country where people leave vacation on the table. Like, that kind of blew my mind. And it's just like, it makes sense what you just said, going back to that hustle. And even like me and my husband were talking about this last night, he was like, he was talking like, and there's this thing where like people feel the pressure of not being a good team player, because you don't know what your peers doing. So there's just that pressure of perform to make sure you're pulling your weight on your team. And I think it goes back to really setting healthy boundaries, right? And so there's only so much the human mind and body can do in a day. And I think we need to get really better at creating norms and routines that where you decompress every day. And even that might be like in the beginning of your day or at the end of your day, but taking really 15 minutes. I think buzzword now is self-care. And self-care is so crucial right now because it's like there's so much anxiety going on. So really setting healthy boundaries and turning work off. We need to get in the habit of turning work off. And that goes back to that hustle culture. It's like, yeah, like you can plan your day and you can do all these great things, but if you're tired, you're not going to be productive, right? And then you're not going to give good time for your family. So get to the point where you turn work off and you don't answer non-urgent emails after whatever those hours are for you and your family. That might be, you might work a longer work day, but you send a note and say, hey, turn off your IM. You don't turn it back on until the next day. And the same thing if you see an email come across. Yeah, you read it, but don't respond with the answer unless it necessarily calls for one. And I think even nowadays with emergencies, somebody will text you first or call you, but like really getting back to that frame of mind of turning work off. And that's so hard because it's just part of our, somebody sends you a message, you reply immediately, right? And sometimes people do it because if they don't, they'll forget. And then you never turning work off, but really setting healthy work hours. It's easy to work longer at home because you don't have the commute. And you're not leaving early to pick up kids from school and things like that. But really still using that time, that time that you use for a commute, maybe that's the time that you use to get on a treadmill or go for a walk. And, or just putting that time, giving that time back to your family. Because when it's all said and done, nobody ever says, I wish I would have worked harder. Well, they always say, I wish I would have spent more time with my family. I wish I would have started the business. I wish I would have did all these things. So it comes back to setting personal boundaries for yourself and for your workspace and for your family. I would say that's the first start. And then it goes back also, I think it should be reinforced by management, right? And so when you do see somebody working, sending a lot of emails late at night, now that might be their work time, right? That might be the time that they get to work on. But if it's outside their work time, as I think we need to be better as leaders to say, hey, that can wait till tomorrow, right? Or even in your note, hey, don't need a response now, putting on your radar for tomorrow. But even getting better at really, I'm not say forcing, but encouraging our teams to have a better work-life balance and encouraging your teams to take PTO. I know it's kind of crazy right now because everyone's vacation plans are ruined or don't feel like they can't go anywhere, but you've already scheduled the time in the budget. Do something with your family locally, right? Take a road trip or whatever, but really, use your PTO and use your time. And like I said, be really for leadership to really enforce that and let people know it's okay not to hustle. Like we should, it's not just lip service about work-life balance and family time, but really encouraging people to do that.
That's so true. And feeling like you have the freedom to treat yourself like a human being, that goes a long way. At the end of the day, we do have deadlines, we do have numbers we got to hit and things like that. But like you said, if I'm working 100, if I'm giving 100% effort, but I'm only at 25%, you're only getting 25%. If I'm at 100% and I give you half, I give you 50%, that's more than I was able to give you before hustling, but just, working my hands to the bone, So there really is more to it, like you said, than just lip service. So that's so important nowadays, especially when your health is more important than ever, right? If you're stressed out, your immune system's going to take a dive. You're not taking care of yourself, in the way that you could and should. And, all of that snowballs. Everything has, there's no free lunch. You take from one place, you're pulling it from somewhere else, you know?
That's true. That's so true. And it's like, yeah, what's the best opportunity cost, right? And then when it comes down to it, our families, and you know, they should be number one.
For sure. Awesome. Well, LaToya, we're coming up on time, and I appreciate you coming in and giving us some different perspective than we usually get on these calls. If you have any last advice that you want to give to people, or thoughts for them to part with, let me know what you think.
Yeah, just continue to stay nimble, right? There's a lot going on right now, and as soon as you get on one track and you have to change it up again, and that's okay. But just continue really to take care of yourself. Take some time to decompress every day, and really take, you know, the time you save with commute and things like that. Give that back to yourself and your family.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, LaToya. I appreciate all the great points that you made today, and this was helpful for me, for somebody who kind of suffers from that always desire to hustle. This is really good stuff to hear, even personally. So thank you for that.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So guys, like I mentioned, this is our last weekly Emsights, but that doesn't mean that we're going to stop providing you guys with facts and tips and you know, insights on how you can be working effectively and efficiently. We've got some other things up on our radar as well. First of all, on Wednesday, if you're someone who's working in Microsoft Dynamics, we're going to be participating in it's a half-day session. It's 2.5 hours on Wednesday of direct kind of sales and marketing plan insights from some of the biggest names in Microsoft, you know, as the platform in marketing and social and things like that. And our own Natalie Jackson is going to be talking about 7 marketing campaigns you need to run right now. So if you're on the Microsoft side and you're interested in participating in that, you can check out more information at more.emfluence.com/dynamics seminar. There's gonna be some great stuff in there. Several speakers talking about everything, like I said, from social to content to campaign strategy. It's definitely not something that you want to miss. In addition to that, even though we're not going to be doing weekly Emsights anymore for a little bit, we are still doing our marketing therapy sessions. So if you've got a specific marketing question or a challenge that you're facing and you just need somebody else to kind of bounce it off of and get, you know, their insights on it, you can schedule a 30-minute consultation free of charge, no strings attached, with somebody here at Emfluence. All you have to do is send an email to expert@emfluence.com, and we'll make sure you get paired up with the right person on our team that can sit down and help talk you through the challenge that you're seeing right now. And all of this is kind of tied together by our email program. You can sign up for upcoming events, get updates on the content that we have coming through and new series that we'll be putting on. And you can sign up for that at more.emfluence.com/subscriptions. Once you sign up, we always send out the details and registration links to anything and everything that we're working on. And we've got some really cool things coming up to keep the conversation going. So like I said, I'm going to miss you guys bright and early every Monday morning, but do keep an eye on all of our social channels, on our email, and we will be speaking to you guys again soon, just in a different capacity. So until we meet again, I'm Corey Lagrange here at Emfluence. It's been a pleasure conducting this series. I hope you got some value out of it, and we will talk to you all soon. See you guys.